Hello everyone, my name is Avalon and today we're going to be going through a level called Controlled Shortcut by SerroDan. The level information is on your screen at the moment and this one's a bit of a long one, but let's get straight into it. There's a lot going on in this first room. Firstly, with the shinies up above you that you wonder if you can reach, but you definitely can. Nothing is stopping you collecting all three of these 1-ups. However, you would notice the arrows are all telling you to go this way, where you will find this section here with the cannons. Now, the more astute of you will see there is a door behind this cannon, and you can make it to that door from the start. The cannon spawns and runs along the bottom, allowing you to get in. However, once you have crossed too far across, there is this cannon here that will stop you progressing backwards, leaving you only a couple of options, either to go up here, to try and make your way to a pipe up here, which is blocked by invisible blocks, and then these spikes here. Now, this first room, or this first section of the first room I should say, has quite a good setup. I like the cannon run, and I like where that leads, and I'll show you that shortly. What I dislike is the invisible blocks that are in this room. So this whole top ceiling, although I can't seem to hit them now, has invisible blocks, which seems a bit unnecessary to me, since it's really, they could just be the blocks over the pipe to stop you getting into it, but it is what it is. The hidden block that really frustrates me is this one here though. Why are you making it harder for the player to kill themselves in a section where you have left them no option but to kill themselves? You can still jump onto the side of these spikes, but just to jump from below is now a challenge because of this invisible block that was really not necessary. If you race the cannon, there is a little boo that jumps up, and you can make it through the door and into this section here, which again is a dead end sort of section. A lava bubble goes past below, and I think it looks really pretty actually, especially with the word clue there. And what this clue is saying, if you look at where the 1-ups are placed, the middle one has a vine going through it, and I will show you how to activate this vine shortly. But again, because for some reason you put hidden blocks everywhere, this room is kind of almost a soft lock. So there's nowhere you can get yourself killed in this room, or nowhere that I found at least, and I spent a lot of time looking. You can occasionally manage to hit one of these spikes, but as you can see, it's not consistent. I did once get lucky and running off the top here, and then I managed to slide down a wall and touch a spike or something. I'm not really sure what happened, but that was the only time I managed to die in this room. And although you haven't hit a checkpoint yet, so starting over isn't the end of the world, it is still annoying to have reached a point where I can't die already. My suggestion would be to put spikes in these top corners here, just so the player has somewhere to die. Aside from that, the hint itself isn't particularly clear. Obviously it's saying there's a box here, and the first room does have a box in it, and then there's a vine here, but there's no indication of how this vine spawns. And once you know it, it is great, but it needs a little bit more communication, maybe some way to just demonstrate how long you have to stand in this box or something like that. I'm not sure, but that would definitely help. So assuming you do stand in the box and you don't get hit by the surprise boo, if you wait in this box for a second, some mechanisms will go off screen and the vine will spawn, allowing you to climb up to this next level. Now when I was playing this, I don't know what I was expecting, but I decided to hit this box to see what was in there, and of course there is a muncher to block your progress. I don't know what I was expecting. It's very obvious as to what's in there because of the springs, and I still hit it anyway. There is, however, this section up here with this piranha plant, and I think this is brilliant personally, this piranha plant. There's just enough room for you to spin jump over the top of it, which will get you put in here, and then suddenly you realise you're trapped. I love that as a level creator you have thought that people are going to see this setup and go for it. My only improvement to it would be replacing the blocks above it with hard blocks, and that would just make it appear like there is something going to happen over here once you get past it, and you might entice a couple more players to try and get themselves into this little mess. But I think this is a really, really good setup. Making the assumption you don't hit the overly obvious muncher and you progress through the level, you'll find this setup here, and there's a few things going on with this. Firstly, there are invisible blocks down there that will kill you, and I feel like that would have been more amusing for the player if there was an indicator that there were those boxes. I know you've got the track there that you use to drop the 1-ups, but maybe you could reposition the track a little bit, or something like that. I don't know if the track's there for something else later, but it definitely does need something extra added to it. Just to tell the player there are the invisible blocks down there, and that way when they jump down there, it is their own fault. There is also this mushroom in this box here, and it does tell you that it's wrong to collect it, and you can actually drop down here and collect it in order to proceed through the level. But for argument's sake, we'll just activate these boxes. So now you've lost the mushroom and you're at this point. If you proceed through the level, you'll find yourself here, and these two hidden blocks here are well indicated, which is great because it makes them more important, but also really well placed, and again that will come to us later. But I think that you could have added to this a little bit more as well by putting a mushroom or something coming out of this pipe, so that once the player either passes these one-ways or activates these blocks, they lose access to that mushroom. I think it'd be a good idea. I appreciate, of course, the mushroom will walk down here, but we'll get to that in a moment. The only thing I dislike about this is up there is a picture of a mushroom, implying that you need to bring it forward. However, as we both know, if you do have a mushroom, your jump height is wrong and you can't make it to these ice blocks. If you can't make it to these ice blocks, you'll fall down here, find more hidden blocks here, and eventually fall to the bottom and to your death. There are 2 mushrooms with lines through them there, and I feel like that's a inconsistent message for the player, in that here it suggests that you should have a mushroom, but however, if you do have the mushroom, you fall down there where you shouldn't have the mushroom, and I think it's a bit odd. However, assuming you do make it to the ice blocks, you've reached one of my top 3 trolls of the level, which is this thwomp, which is just hilarious. Obviously there are clear arrows as to how to proceed past the thwomp, but I just love how it throws you into this pit and returns you to your death. So the way to get under the thwomp is as per the clear directions on the ice path. You want to hold the down arrow and duck, and thwomp kind of glitches over the top of you. It's quite amusing, and then he comes back because of how clown cars work, which makes those shinies, which did look quite attractive, suddenly out of reach, which I like. This section here is just simple and clever. However, I found there was a little bit of jank in it, in that this note block here on the left, if you stand on that, the spike ball will get knocked down or destroyed, and you won't actually be able to get the mushroom, which is, you know, it's a minor thing because another spike ball does come along, but it's still a little bit frustrating. Additionally, obviously, you have the mushroom on wings, which means sometimes it flies away, which is also a little bit annoying. If it wasn't on wings, it would come out to the right, bounce here, and then bounce up onto this path anyway, which would still give you the same effect, but obviously it would stop it being a complete miss by the player if they slightly misplay the section, which I think is a bit fairer on the player. Here you've got a good option between going down and going up. I might have hidden a secret behind these ice blocks here, or something like that. I don't know how that would fit in with the level, or if this is the end of the screen because it's a vertical subworld. I think it is, but definitely maybe hide something behind those if you've got the space for it. If not, it just looks like a good route, and maybe if you've got a spare pipe or something, just whack that there, so it gives the player more incentive to go down here. When I was playing the level, I did realise it was the end of the world, and therefore there couldn't be anything behind the ice blocks, so maybe a pipe would be better. Once you get here, you get a mushroom check, which is nice and standard, and then you reach this section. Now obviously there's a marked box here, which will cause a chain reaction. However, the first time I played the level, I didn't actually hit the marked box. I decided to jump here, and I hit a marked box up there, which had the same effect, but it felt a little bit unfair. And I think the better way to do that would have been maybe to mark the box on this level here, this second box here, but keep this box here. So, or maybe mark the first box here and then the third box here, to sort of give some indication that there are boxes up there. I don't know if that would give away too much for the troll, however, it would need testing, but it just felt a bit unfair that I tried to jump over this box and still lost out. Obviously, you don't see how you've lost out until you get up to the top here, where the cannon has been dropped by that POW exploding, and the on-off switch won't be changed by that pokey over there, but you can't progress through this door anymore. Assuming you get up to this point without hitting that POW block, you will find, of course, the cannon is at a height that allows you to get through the door, but the spike will continue to throw spike balls regardless. I like this section because it implies that the on-off switch... I didn't see that in the level. But yeah, the on-off switch there with the bomb is implied importance by these on-off blocks here above the blue pipe. I can't believe I didn't see that spike ball once during the level by trying to look in the blue pipe. But maybe it would be worth upgrading this green pipe to a red pipe, so that the second the player does look over there, the spike ball begins its journey. That being said, I love these blocks. It's such a simple and clever and small troll that many players may miss, but it's there anyway, and that's like when you're watching a film and they've got those small details that just make that little bit extra. Really good little addition to the level there. Then we find ourselves back in this first room. Of course, the surprise boo is back, ready to try and collect your soul. And also this cannon is going back and forth, which is just good fun. Because you spawn to the right hand side of the screen, this cannon is here preventing you from going back even if the vine was there. However, if you wanted to get back up there, I'm pretty sure you could do it with some tight wall jumps up here with this mushroom that you can find over here. Assuming that you don't decide to try and make your way back up there and you go back into this hint room, you can find yourself spike box falling down, and with the spike box you can then drop to the bottom through the saws and find your first checkpoint. Now these two cannons that pop out, incidentally they didn't get me getting to the checkpoint, but later in Impatience I was holding right as respawning and they got me after that point, and that's why I think they're clever, is that they're not just for that initial you nearly got the checkpoint, but they continue to get you afterwards, and I really like their placement. After that you reach this level, and these note blocks here are incredible. I love them, they are amazing. It's very common to see troll creators using note blocks or something to bounce someone off a pipe to prevent them returning through it. However, these ones actually bonk you up into the spikes above, which is really, really clever because it looks like you're getting one thing when in fact you're getting something completely different. This leads us to this section here with these dudes in the clown cars. So there's a mushroom up there, and maybe you're thinking, can I walk past them without the mushroom? So you might try and collect it. However, that simply releases a muncher there with a mushroom on top of it. Now this is really good because it makes the player think maybe there was some way I could have got that mushroom, maybe there's more I can do there, but there's actually nothing you can do to collect that mushroom, and it's a really, really good setup and a really clever troll. This one, however, is less impressive. So obviously there's the spikes in the block above, and maybe the player's thinking, well, in the current troll meta, there might be something up there. I don't know. But there's no hard blocks to imply that there would be anything up there or any way out should you get up there. So I consider maybe putting some hard blocks around it just to give you that extra little suggestion that you can make it. The part that I dislike about this is how easy it is to bounce on this guy's head and get yourself trapped up here. It happens multiple times and it's quite a tricky jump to get through. It's you know, you've only got one block of space to make the jump. It's very easy for the player to jump up themselves or to be bounced up, and that's something that a lot of troll creators kind of forget, is that when a level's designed to kill you, if it is killing you in a way that it feels unfair or overly technical, then the level itself feels quite unfair. But aside from that, it's a clever troll in that I never saw it coming the first time round, but afterwards it kind of got frustrating bouncing over that consistently. Once you have got past that one, you've then got this section here which has a sort of, oh, maybe you should look up here, there's a way back down from this one, which is very clever when you compare it to this one. With the way back down, you can see there might be value in you going up there. Now, there is one thing I will point out, is that if you do get up here, you can activate your P switch without hitting the hidden blocks that are up there. Which doesn't really change much in terms of outcome, it's just an interesting note. However, if you do hit the hidden blocks, 2 bombs will spawn, blowing this block up here and dropping these cannons down, which means that you can no longer access this top pipe, only the bottom pipe. If you go into the bottom pipe, there's just a clear warning that says wrong pipe. Now, text in troll levels is often not the best thing, because it means that you're not communicating effectively with your players. However, your text is consistent throughout, and the reason it's there becomes apparent later on in the blocks that it is, and I really think it's clever that if you're going to use text, you need to keep it consistent so that the player can always read it. And then that leaves us to this first softlock room, or anti-softlock room, where you are given a small challenge of bringing a bomb across a bridge. It's just a simple on-off challenge, and it is technically easy. Obviously, you're on a note block, which makes it a little bit more challenging, but it means that it's something the player's seen before, and if the player is messing it up, it's their own fault, and I like that. I think that's really clever. And I think that a skill-based anti-softlock room is always good because it keeps the player engaged throughout, even if they apparently can no longer do it. Once the player has got the bomb through, the bomb will explode and the player thinks, great, now I can jump in front of the fire, but unfortunately there is a one-way stopping them. I mean, the player then has to do it again. And again, this is a really clever little idea because it forces the player into thinking that they'd done it right, or got it right, and then they actually have to do the same relatively simple skill challenge again. The addition of the note block just makes the jumps a little bit more challenging than a normal on-off level, but because it's so similar to what a player is used to seeing, they assume it to be easy and that they're just doing something wrong, and all in all, it's a really good setup. Once you have your next bomb down, then you can blow yourself up and die. So, avoiding the section above with the bad bombs ready to blow up the hard blocks that you can see at the top of the screen now, you reach this section. Now, it looks like there may be something above for a mushroom, and maybe there's a reason to go and collect that, but there's nothing up there apart from these 3 blocks and a disrespect note block. So, I don't know why a player would go up there, to be honest, but, you know, they might. I think you could fix this personally by putting 2 brick blocks above in these 2 empty gaps here, so it looks like that with a mushroom you could proceed through the level, and maybe a mushroom stalk, so it looks like there's something up there that you can jump to. However, this mushroom is actually telling you that by activating this block, you begin a small time trial that spawns a mushroom for you to carry on with. Now, this is clever, and I like how the spring lifts up this muncher, because it means that people may wait on the green mushroom and then get killed. However, successfully doing so will release this mushroom. Now, players may be able to get this mushroom without jumping on top of the green mushroom, like so, and then proceed through the level. And I like that you've made that a possibility that you have actually planned for by putting these 2 mushrooms up here so close together, preventing any sort of progress through the level with a mushroom, and a nice clear indicator here that there should be no mushroom with a way to die. This is a perfect setup, and it is brilliant. So, assuming you hit the time trial, you beat the muncher, you make it to the top, and then you reach this point here, whether you collect the mushroom or not is open for debate, and if you don't collect the mushroom and you proceed, you get quite an interesting setup. Firstly, it tells you need the mushroom to your left just here, whilst a P block activates and a bunch of stuff happens, and if you're not paying attention, it's hard to see just what's happened. And what has happened is you have switched the on-off state so that it is now off, meaning you can only go through this left pipe. There is nothing else to do in this room, everything else is blocked off, and you can collect that fire flower if you so desire. And that brings us to our second softlock. This one is also very clever, with power-ups coming from every possible angle. I'd actually suggest that it was a bad softlock if it wasn't for something that you very cleverly put in to make it a little bit easier for the player, and that is after X time, 2 blocks will come and push the launchers at the side of the map here up and expose the spikes behind them like this. So with these spikes now exposed, it's a little bit easier to die, but there are of course still stars and mushrooms running around, preventing you from taking damage. These propellers are a pain in the butt because that cannon will fall back down if you off-screen it, which does just, it's sort of adds a little bit back to the challenge, but it doesn't make it impossible, and that's the main thing, is that it is very possible to die, and I genuinely believe that you have tested this room yourself quite a lot. I think you may have missed that muncher, that cannon respawning, but it's a very minor thing in the big picture. Coming through this pipe with a mushroom gives you a very different set of events. The P-switch is not activated, which means these ice blocks remain, and not a lot really changes above where you were previously. However, the on-off state does remain on, allowing you to go through this pipe and proceed through the level. In this room you get a quick little challenge to jump to this vine, which will allow you to proceed through the level. Below us is a set of invisible blocks that will stop you jumping back up should you fall. I feel like this may be a little bit unfair on the player, but with some decent indicators like a track line, I think that would be a lot fairer as a section. After you've made it through that, you have a quick power-up check before you proceed on to this next section of the level. Now, here, there's a lot going on. There is a piranha plant sitting over there that will prevent you proceeding, and you now know you need this power-up, which is part of the reason this power-up checks up here is so brilliant, because it puts the player into a position where they can see they need a power-up, and they've just had to give theirs up. Most players will recognise that you can bounce a mushroom over a P-block using a brick, so the mushroom should regularly make its way over to the other end, which will of course release this muncher, blocking the player's path. In this final brick there's also a coin which will do the same thing if hit without the mushroom. It's a really clever setup and I really appreciate it. Assuming the muncher is not released, you can actually get over this piranha plant with a spin jump. If you were too slow, a muncher will be revealed, which puts a time pressure once this spike is brought onto the screen. And there is a small hint here telling you to push Z as you hit the coin. This goes back to what I was saying about the previous spin jump over the Goomba, or Goomrat, sorry, and it's very challenging for the player when they've already made it so far through and they've been killed so many times. It's a very precise jump to expect a player to make. But assuming they do get through, they can then wall jump up here, avoiding the spike, and there's an arrow there which indicates where fireballs are going to come from. And these fireballs are really clever. They are in the perfect position and they launch at the perfect time. It's a really good setup, and it did get me the first time that I came through here, and I just think it's brilliant personally. I think it's a really good setup. Next we get to this section with a question mark block with arrows pointing to it, and of course the troll meta is saying if you push it, you're going to lose your fire flower or whatever else. And it's a really good sort of anti-troll in that you set that up and it goes and breaks those bricks. Now, there is also the other issue here of this muncher, which you can actually kill by doing that and getting rid of it. Or you can hit the brick block with the power-up and it will fall down and crush you. Now, assuming you hadn't hit this block correctly and the spike ball hadn't opened this path, you can go up here, which has a bit of an odd setup, where eventually the blocks will change over and this Monty Mole will throw spanners at you. Now, he's been put on a moving clown cart, which is always great fun, because occasionally you will see a wrench be thrown super fast, although most of these seem to be going at the average speed. The level also drops more fire flowers on you to reduce your power-up time, and I can't believe how long this is going without a single super wrench thrown. However, eventually a muncher will come and kill you, so that irrelevant as to where you manage to get stuck, then the muncher will kill you anyway. However, if we don't go that way, and we'll leave the fire flower as well, you can follow the spike ball through the brick. There we go. You can follow the spike ball through the brick and proceed through the level. Both of these pipes going nowhere. Finally, you reach this section here, and this is one of my favourite setups for this. Obviously, you have an arrow on one side and no arrow on the other side. Now, normally, I am 100% against these 50-50 decisions, especially when they lead to a checkpoint. However, this one is very well done in that both ways are, in fact, correct. So it didn't matter which way I had chosen to come up here, I would have been able to make it up to this checkpoint. It does, however, have this here, which will, of course, kill the player if they jump just a little bit too high, and then stop them proceeding through the pipe. Luckily, it does give them a way out, so that they can still retain their new checkpoint. Assuming you don't trigger your spike ball, you'll come to this section here with this thwomp coming through this way. Now, if you are too slow, that spring will bounce the thwomp up to this safe zone, preventing you from proceeding, and also these cannons here will jump out from behind you. Now, it was probably sheer luck, but I happened to be stood just on that spot. If you did plan this, then beyond brilliant. I am genuinely speechless. However, I was stood on top of where this cannon was and got squashed at the top there, and I thought it was genuinely funny. It really made me laugh. That brings us on to this section here with a lot going on. You have a choice on whether you're going to hit this P switch and switch the on-offs. I personally would get rid of this wall at the end. I would make it clear to the player that this is in fact above the end of the level, so that they see that this is the end screen and they know that this could be the end, and therefore they're above the end, and therefore they might be more likely to push this on-off switch up here and block themselves out of the end of the level. Aside from that, it's really just an on switch, really. This here is fantastic. It's an anti-troll, and it will obviously give you a mushroom. But it could have been anything in there, ranging from a boo to a fish to something that's going to stop you proceeding on the level like all the other ones have been, and I thought it was really, really well done. I never actually hit this question mark block whilst I was playing it because the setup looked too ridiculous, and I didn't realise it was the end screen until I'd already finished the level once. But just for the sake of the video, let's have a look at what happens when you do. Of course, the munchers fall down and the on-off switch isn't triggered, which leaves the munchers stood there. I reckon, however, it's not that big of a deal in that you can still get over. You can. I lost my mushroom, but that's not important, as we will come to shortly. The mushroom, although an anti-troll, it actually ended up being a double anti-troll. But using this spring, we can then make it forwards to this door. This section is brilliant. You have these two falling donuts, and then a super speedy cannon, which zooms its way past, and that again killed me, and I laughed so much at that death. Then you have this section here where you will be given a shellmet. Now, if you watch the red spike below here, the spike top down here, you will see that it has reached a point where it cannot proceed, and that's because there is some block behind this donut, meaning that it's stopped there. So it looks like you're supposed to take this shellmet and throw it through this gap to trigger the on-off switch. But again, the shellmet would get stuck in this same spot. What you actually need, either the shellmet or the mushroom from the previous room, is to go through this door and damage boost through this piranha plant. And then that brings you to this section here with another hidden block, and again it's an anti-troll, and it's very clever for a simple 1-up. If you did take both the mushroom and the shellmet, you can reach this point with the mushroom still active, but there is a power-up check just here stopping you proceeding. That brings us to this section here. Now this is good because when the pipe breaks away, it looks like it's trolling you as you go through the cannon, and I'll talk about that as we go through the pipe. But this level does have some setup issues, and what I'll do is I'll play a couple of clips of me trying to slide down this pipe. It was most notable when I was trying to make my world record run, but occasionally you can slide along this pipe and the switch will trigger, but you'll end up on the side of this on-off block instead of Oh, that was a highly predictable situation that we ended up in there. It is a thwomp hitting an on-off block, and it just switched the switch back because I thought too long about going through the pipe and killed me. Now that was a similar death to the one that I was talking about, where I caught the side of the on-off block and then fell down into the spikes below and died. However, if all works correctly, you go through the red pipe and find yourself back here, and you feel like you've just been trolled, and it's so clever, and I think this is such a brilliant little setup. It really made me laugh, because you kind of lose track of the on-off switches and which direction they're in, and in actuality, of course, you are now in a new direction, which allowed this spike ball to fall down and break a path through here, which gives you this door, and puts you in this cage, where all of the faces that were throughout the whole level all suddenly line up, and you begin falling through with enough time to read the text that is displayed to you as you go. So it says here, back to CP0, which is quite a big claim because obviously CP0, quite a big return to the level, but eventually you'll find yourself at the bottom here, and you can simply damage boost through this pipe, through this saw, and through this saw, where you will get this vine. Now, you will recognise this area from the start of the level, and this is where I spoke about the invisible blocks that I said I would come up back to, and if you did jump and you knocked them, obviously you would not be able to re-enter this pipe from the vine. It does in fact bring you back to the beginning of the level, but it simply puts you into a position here where you are between two spike balls. I actually used the opportunity to damage boost through the second spike ball, which created some weird setups, where the spike ball would despawn. However, luckily you could go back and get a new one to finish this, as we break through the level again. This is what I was talking about earlier on in the position of the blocks and why the text was made out of certain blocks and that sort of thing, because both of these sections are taking you all the way back through, and it's really clever and it's quite beautiful as well. Eventually you'll find yourself here, with these P switches stopping you proceeding, and a bomb obviously going over there. Now, I was a bit too far away, but the bomb did reveal this end of level axe, and the muncher then fell down when the P switch ended, which you couldn't get through because of all the P gating, so it looks like you now can't reach the end level, with obviously the N64 music stopping you. Then this boo just sneaks up when the POW finally goes off, and I just love that final little touch. I thought he was a very little cute boo. And that is the end of the level. Now, this level had some interesting concepts, and overall I thought it was fantastic. I think it's actually one of the better levels I've played since starting doing this. Definitely not the best one I've played during the feedback selection. However, since doing the videos, this is by far the best level I've played. I like the ending where it all kind of comes together and the whole map becomes one big puzzle piece, and you've done that so well, and I think that players will really enjoy seeing that whole level come back together, and really appreciate the mechanical work that you've put into it. I like how the elevator obviously prevents you from dying, but you could die in that final horizontal one if you didn't play it correctly. I like the trolls throughout the whole level. They're all really clever and really good trolls. My only issue with them is, as stated during the room breakdown, is some of them are a bit technically challenging, which in a level designed to kill you is quite complicated. The spin jump over the piranha especially, you can actually spin jump before the coin and hold spin, and that will guarantee you passage over the top of the piranha, but for players that maybe aren't so technically skilled, they might not recognize that setup, and the hint is quite tough to see, especially when you also have the time constraint of the spike revealing that muncher. Now, that muncher is in a hidden block, which is the other issue I have with the level, in that there are hidden blocks sometimes that just appear to be in unnecessary or random spaces. Take, for example, the first couple of rooms, you have the block stopping you jumping into the bottom of the spikes, and I just do not understand the value of that block or why you added it to the level. and you also have the hidden blocks in the hint room, which stop you killing yourself during the hint. Now, I understand that second example is because of the end game where you come back through that room again with the spike balls. It's to stop you accidentally dying, but given you already have the threat of the spike balls, I don't think that risk is too great. Additionally, you could put spikes at the top of the room, so you climb the vine up and then hit the spikes that way. But hands down, one of the best levels I've played in quite a long time. Definitely earns the heart, definitely deserves the heart. And with a few minor improvements that I mentioned on the room by room, I think this could be one of the really great troll levels that sort of stand the test of time. I felt the whole thing was quite original. I really liked the thwomp coming through the clown cart. I really liked the super speed cannon crushing you, and I liked the the launchers that come up through the ground, and they killed me, although I feel like I was unfortunate in that. There are a couple of other hidden things that I didn't see on the room by room or didn't show on the room by room. But there's a couple of other hidden things in the level that are definitely worth playing for yourself. Now, normally I say, to the content creator, if you update level, please make sure I know the level code so I can play it. But I think this troll level is so close to finished that I don't think you need to play any version that isn't this one. My complaints are so minor in the grand scheme of this level that I just don't want to take away from its brilliance by suggesting it needs another update. It is a really strong level, so great work, SerroDan. Aside from that, if you'd like your level looked at, then leave your level code in the comment section, and I will add it to my list that is rapidly growing. And all that I have left to do now is take the world record. I've been Avalon, and I will see you all next time.